Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on trends and use cases for VSaaS. I'm Joel Griffin, Editor-in-Chief of SecurityInfoWatch.com, and I will be your moderator for today's program. Today's webinar is sponsored by Micron Technology and Verkada. Given the increasing prevalence of cloud solutions today, an ever-growing number of organizations are looking to invest in video surveillance as a service offerings rather than continuing to pour funds into systems that must be maintained in-house. However, there are a number of things that end users as well as their integrator partners need to take into consideration before making the jump to VSaaS in order to ensure a successful deployment. And that's what our speakers are going to cover today. Before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items that I want to go over. First off, this presentation is both live and interactive, so you can ask a question at any time via the Ask a Question box on your presentation viewer window. We will answer as many of these as we are able to during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. Also, if you have any technical difficulties, enter your issue into that box there, and a member of our team will assist you. If you are running pop-up blocking software, you will need to disable it to view the webinar. Also, it is recommended that you shut down all other applications for better performance. For your convenience, this presentation will be available for on-demand viewing 24 hours after the live event, and an email reminder will be sent to all registrants containing a link to the presentation for on-demand viewing. It will also be accessible from our homepage. Also, you may qualify for CEU credits following this webinar. If you'd like to receive a certificate of attendance, please stay on for the duration of the event. You will automatically receive your certificate within 24 hours. Finally, today's webinar will be archived on our site for a period of 6 months. Your speakers for today's program include Michael Baska, Senior Director for Industrial and Consumer Segments at Micron Technology. Michael, who has more than 25 years of experience in the semiconductor and data storage industry, is responsible for Micron's business in a wide range of leading-edge innovation markets, including augmented and virtual reality, industrial IoT, video security, edge computing, as well as aerospace and defense. Also today, you'll hear from Michele Casertano, Director of Product for Cameras and Artificial Intelligence at Verkada. Prior to joining Verkada, Michele spent the bulk of his career in tech, both at startups and as a consultant with the Boston Consulting Group. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Michael. Michael, take it away.
All right. Thanks so much, Joel. Thanks for the introduction there. And yeah, as mentioned, I'm Michael Baska, Senior Director at Micron for the industrial and consumer segments. And just to start it off, it's obviously an exciting time for memory overall, memory in these spaces, as we're seeing, a lot the connectivity of everything and everything through IoT and 5G, together with a strong cloud backbone. And thirdly, with more and more processing power happening at the edge, we're seeing the ability to process AI and ML applications at an increasing level across many pieces of the industrial and consumer segments. So today we're going to focus in on one of those. We're going to talk about video security specifically, as well as underlying trends in this space driving offerings in that space of this VSaaS, or video security as a service, and what that means for memory in that space. So first of all, why do we care? And if we step back and look specifically at this market, both the existing traditional kind of low-tech solution for video security, closed caption TV, low resolution cameras, now expanding into much higher resolution offerings, right? This is opening up new spaces in a variety of key applications, such as smart cities, smart factories, medical, retail, all have opportunities to take advantage of all of this data that's being generated at the edge, and turning that into useful, not just video security, but even more useful information. And so today already, this is roughly a $40 billion market. And by the year 2030, it's projected to more than double to $83 billion. That's roughly an 11% CAGR over that time. So this is a rapidly growing space in this application for the reasons that I mentioned, the value that it's bringing to end customers and to the channel. And it's driven by the things on the right side. The three key points there, again, is not just simple monitoring, but actually turning that into intelligence at the edge, the ability to do real-time event capture and analytics. So again, the intelligence in this data set. And then lastly, with some of the models that we have, we'll talk more about VSaaS, but this enables one to kind of dip your toe in and grow in terms of what you do in video security. So it doesn't need to be a full-blown, capital intensive implementation. Initially, this is something where you can just leverage off of what you may already have and grow that space, or we're seeing many new adoptions into these new applications. So just a quick high-level primer on what is VSaaS in case any of you are not intimately familiar with VSaaS. So if I step back and think about this video security market at a high level, traditionally this was a bit of I'll call it a do-it-yourself model. So this is where either sole proprietors or IT departments within organizations or hired through a channel partner would essentially go and kind of do it themselves in terms of implementing some of the solutions that I mentioned. So a variety of low-tech cameras, typically with some kind of local storage, a network attached server or storage solution there on site. And that's great for many applications, but as we get more of this intelligence, as well as we get many more customers interested in utilizing the newer technology with the advanced analytics, we're seeing a migration from some of this do-it-yourself traditional model to essentially tapping into the experts in this space. And the experts are offering essentially a complete solution with more of a subscription model. So again, rather than having to do a big investment in the initial installation costs, these VSaaS providers will handle the hardware, the installation, the maintenance, and the software infrastructure to be able to access through the cloud all of those devices as needed. So between the cloud backbone and this third-party utilization, this provides a much simpler model of adoption for folks who perhaps are not ready to do it themselves, who don't have that as expertise, or also in places where IT resources are very scarce. And so there's the opportunity here to leverage a dedicated provider in this VSaaS space and free up those IT resources to go focus on other projects and implementations within the organization. At a high level, VSaaS has been around for some time, and we're seeing some evolution in terms of the offerings in this space. Many of the early implementations, maybe a decade ago, were in more of this hosted model, where the cloud was essentially the new technology. And so all of the information and data from the on-site cameras was uploaded through the network and stored in the cloud. So this was a great solution early on in terms of, the resolution of these cameras tended to be relatively low. And so the amount of data that was being generated and fed over the network into the cloud was not a huge bandwidth concern or a cost concern. But as we've seen the migration to some of these newer, higher resolution cameras, the 1080p's and even 4K resolution, the sheer amount of data that's being generated is becoming more of a challenge for the network to constantly be loading that on a real-time basis into the cloud. And so that's where we've seen some of this evolution into some of the newer models that are down below, either the managed VSaaS model, where essentially the data is being stored on premise and then can be accessed through the cloud, through the software platforms that I mentioned. And now we're really seeing a very strong trend toward hybrid, which is likely to become the predominant solution. The hybrid solution is where you have essentially both. So you'd have the on-premise storage inside the camera, but then you would also have essentially a backup in the cloud to be able to access that mission-critical information. And if you think about this for a minute, it really kind of makes sense, and it's something that we're all used to. If we think about the mobile phone as an example, right? Most of us store, key files, whether it be pictures, videos, other documents, locally on our own personal device, but also at the same time subscribe to some kind of a backup, that's in the cloud that maintains in case there's a critical failure or a migration to newer devices. So similarly, in this VSaaS space, this hybrid solution provides the best of those, where the data resides on premise. So it's available locally to help drive that information and also to save that network traffic. but the key data within there can be uploaded into the cloud and preserved for indefinite amounts of time and critical backup data. So, one example of this hybrid VSaaS solution, again, we're seeing overall savings to the customers and the channel partners in this space. So we're showing two different examples of the cameras here. So a standard IP camera, right? In this case, this is, again, there's many of it. There's a large installed base of these already there, and they're great for video capture technology. Typically, by the way, a pretty low memory footprint inside of them. Some SLC NAND to store the code, some DRAM to go ahead and run the image and the processing. But with the micro SD card, you're able to store, locally the memory in that space. And now, with the greater adoption of more advanced cameras, we're seeing, a rapid uptick in IP cameras that have the ability to do this AI and machine learning interpretation locally in the devices there. So in addition to just the basic video capture, they're able to do object detection as well as object classification and contextual analytics in that space. And essentially, a couple ways to think about this is bringing a lot more intelligence. So many of us are familiar, perhaps in home environments even, where we'll get alerts in terms of some kind of object detection. What's great about object classification is that that can significantly reduce some of these false positives and really put the information to much more use in terms of what's truly something that needs a reaction to, or something that can be useful to drive business information in that space. And there as well, so we'll see a higher memory content in terms of LPDRAM to drive the more advanced memory processing associated with the higher resolution camera and the metadata and interpretation of the objects, and the eMMC for the code storage. And then again, a micro SD card that's appropriate in this space to store that data locally, so that it's there and preserved for security purposes, but also can be accessed then through the cloud in these subscription services. So I talked a little bit in that space about this storage on-site in the cameras themselves. And again, micro SD is the predominant solution for that storage. One of the key things to understand, however, is that the usage model and workloads for these video security devices is extremely different from how micro SD cards are typically used. And not all micro SD cards are the same. Most of them are not capable of supporting the kind of workloads that this 24/7 recording requires. And so there's a big risk of using the wrong type of device in this application. It's going to have a much higher failure rate and requires significant service needs, and in many cases truck rolls to go out there. So the selection of what micro SD card you use for the solution can really save both channel integrators as well as end customers a lot of headaches. So let me dig into that a little bit. We essentially have on the left-hand side what the majority of micro SD cards today are really tailored toward mobile usage and consumer usage, right? Whether this is in a gaming device or in a phone or in a digital SLR camera. Those are examples of what drives most of the market for micro SD. And if you think about those applications, right, those are pretty infrequent writes. So occasionally you'll take some new pictures or store a new file to your device. But relative to 24/7 recording, very infrequent in comparison to that, and relatively infrequent reads. And so because this is a relatively low requirement usage model, you can use almost any type of NAND and component into that space to meet the quality and reliability requirements of that application. So again, the vast majority, 98% of the cards on the market, if you just go do a search on whatever online marketplace, this is what's typically going to pop up. But on the right side, in comparison, highlighting again that this VSaaS and video security is a constant 24/7 write. So you're always, downloading into the device the latest imagery. And these, in many cases, whether it be a smart factory or other application, it's critical applications. Therefore, we don't want any frame drops, right? We don't want to lose that information or have a risk of some event happening that was missed. They're also typically a long lifetime and can be much more difficult to access. As we mentioned, in many cases, the the people who are supporting these devices are not necessarily on site, right? Either through a VSaaS, right, separately being through a third party, or a channel integrator. And so the last thing we want to do is to have to go out there and service these devices. And so in this case, we offer both a long life and a warranty on micro SD cards that are tailored for this, as well as some of these smart tools that can help to predict proactively when there could be an issue. So for these solutions, it's really critical to use what we call OEM grade components and high quality NAND. So what we're putting in our Micron solutions in this space is our highest quality NAND that's been through a variety of test flows specifically tailored for this space, which achieves an overall lower defect rate, or defects per million, being extremely low in this space for this application. So last week, I'm happy to share that we announced the third generation of our solution of micro SD cards tailored for the video security market, as well as just broader usage within industrial applications. And as part of that third generation offering, we also introduced a new density point at the top end of that, a 1.5 terabyte micro SD card. This is a first actually not only for the industrial space or the video security space, but this 1.5 terabyte is actually a first for any space, even in the consumer. So this is part of Micron's value with technology leadership in both DRAM and NAND, that we're actually able to be first to market with this highest density offering in the industry, and to tailor it specifically for these video security and VSaaS solutions. A couple details about this product family, just to give you some sense. So I mentioned a couple slides ago the importance of quality in this space. So again, a typical retail or consumer type of device isn't even measured for a quality spec or rated. So we basically have we're rated for 2 million hours mean time to failure, which if you translate means that less than 0.5% annual failure rate of any of these devices. So even in relatively large deployment, you're going to have, essentially zero or very, very few issues in the micro SD cards that you deploy, and these even on a large scale. From an endurance perspective over time, right, these are specifically tailored to support that 24/7 continuous recording, including at resolutions up to the 4K resolution imaging. And in that application, still able to support a guaranteed 5 years lifetime endurance of those devices. So this is under the most strenuous applications and highest resolution, still able to achieve a 5-year lifetime. You can see the total bytes written are quite significant. That's essentially what gives us that ability to deliver on that promise. And we have a full density range. So I mentioned there's still a big installed base of some of the lower resolution cameras. So depending on the specific application, where this device may be going, some of the higher density points for the higher resolution, and in cases where you want to preserve that data within the device for 30, 60, 90, even 120 days can be supported at the highest 4K resolution of these devices. Or if it's a lower, if you don't need the data to be stored for that long on premise, or if you have a lower resolution camera, we have density offerings all the way down to as low as 32 gigabyte on some of our legacy offerings. So net of all that, if we jump down, I mentioned some of the predictive tools that we offer in this space as well. So the Smart Tool is an example of that, where essentially the micro SD card monitors the usage that it's been undergoing, and through the cloud and the third-party software can share data and information that will show you the remaining useful lifetime of that device. So it'll give you that look ahead, that proactive visibility to know if there's a potential issue coming. They're going to be rare, but even more so, the fact that you can proactively be aware of that gives a lot of added value for the VSaaS providers, for channel providers, or for end users in this space. And then on the right side, we mentioned these smart cameras adding the AI and machine learning capability. And so in those in particular, it's important to recognize that not only is that 24/7 recording happening, but the things that we talked about, the object identification and classification, is happening simultaneously. And so the ability and the storage to actually continue to receive the stream for the 24/7 recording, but then also process and store the metadata related to these events, has to happen simultaneously, and that's actually no trivial task either. So again, in the firmware around these micro SD cards tailored for this market, we were able to bring the solution that's capable of handling both of those simultaneously. So you can record that highest resolution 4K, on a 24/7 without frame drops, and simultaneously be able to capture up to 8 of these AI events per second. So that metadata is going to get preserved in there as well and not lost. So that gives you a little bit of a look ahead. I'm going to pass it over now to Michaela at Verkada, who's one of our partners. They're a leader in this VSaaS space, and so they're going to give you a demonstration of some of the usage models that they're seeing here in that space. So Michaela, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, Michael, thank you very much. And thanks for the kind introduction. And as Michael was saying, we've been partnering for a long time with Micron as our solution for our onboard storage for our cameras. So today I'm gonna show you a short presentation about Verkada, and then we're just gonna get into the product to see how it looks. For this, just a second. And we should be ready to go. So Verkada is, at this time, the fastest growing physical private security company in the world. We're located across multiple offices, both in the US and internationally. And we're backed by some of the most important VC funds here in Silicon Valley, including Sequoia, First Round Capital, Meritech, Felicis Ventures, and Siemens. A little bit about us. We were founded in 2016. We currently have, here it says 940 employees worldwide. Numbers are actually a little over 1,000. And our goal is to create a modern enterprise physical security system. Ultimately, what we want to do is that we want to help our customers protect people, assets, and their privacy. When you look at how our system looks like, we see ourselves pretty much as an operating system for a building. We have a web application called Command that allows us to manage all our product portfolio, which includes and is not limited to security cameras, but also has environmental sensor, access control, our alarm and monitoring system, and our guest, which is the latest product that we just released. For the sake of this conversation, given that today we're here with our colleagues from Micron, we're going to mainly focus around security cameras. Something that has been very key in our relationship with Micron and that enables us to do is obviously our rapid growth. We were founded in 2016, but we've been releasing product at an extremely rapid pace. You can see how in 2017, we launched our first lineup of cameras with the D30 and D50. In 2018, we expanded the portfolio to fish eyes with the D80, and it's also when we launched our mobile application. And for the first time, we started fulfilling this vision that Michael was obviously teasing you about, which is the ability to run people analytics. 2019, you can see the expansion, actually the first refresh of our camera lineup with the launch of the CD series and our viewing station. The following year, 2020, big launch, the launch of access control and environmental sensors. So a further expansion on our product portfolio and the launch of our new Bullet series. 2021 is when we launched Verkada Alarms and Intrusion Detection. We expanded further our camera lineup. We launched our new generation viewing station. 2022, a lot of things that are not reported here, but obviously the launch of Guest and the launch of our next generation analytics, such as occupancy trends, which is our efficiency optimization solutions for spaces. Something that I want to call out that is very interesting. Every single year, we'll be pretty much launching a new product lineup. And at the same time, roughly every 2 years, we've been constantly refreshing our existing product. At this time, our full camera lineup is comprised of Dome, Mini, Bullet, Fisheye, and our viewing station. So we try to have as complete as possible camera lineup without pretty much bringing too much complexity. I know for a fact that in the future, you'll see our camera lineup actually expand into new kind of products that we currently don't have. All of them currently powered by Micron. Michael was showing this as well, but what is the idea and what is the advantage of having a hybrid cloud infrastructure? So I'm sure you're all familiar with the old camera system architecture, which relies pretty much on cameras that are attached to a switch, on having a local NVR, and pretty much a more cumbersome or more difficult to manage infrastructure. The moment in which you're able to move to an hybrid cloud infrastructure, you can see pretty much a drastically simplified infrastructure in which we don't have to deploy NVRs or DVRs. Our cameras directly connected to a switch, and then pretty much the cameras are automatically, can be easily and automatically added to our command application. This is something that has that really resonated with our customers, which have enjoyed a higher degree of simplicity for all our products. At the same time, something that I'll add before moving into the demo, we continuously release new features with updates that are done completely on the air. Only last quarter, the camera team actually released 30 plus new features and improvement that our customers have been able to enjoy. So let me stop sharing for a second. And let's get into the demo of the product. So what you're seeing here is Command. Command is our multi-product, multi-site web application. It is multi-product because you can see here, I can quickly access our cameras product, access control, environment, alarms, or our guest product. And is multi-site. You can see here, I can actually have, you can see here the ability to actually have different sites. And at the same time, it could be multi-organization. So from here, I can actually move into other organizations. If you're interested to take a quick peek at what is going on each one of your sites, we have this floor plan view, which allows customers to see, if cameras are detecting motion. You can see here, for instance, this camera is seeing motion right now. I can click into it, and then I can access the live stream of the camera to see what might be going on. And I can actually see my colleague, David Mora, from the engineering team that is entering now. And we can see him pull up his phone and actually open the door using access control. Something else that I can do from here, very important, is the ability to see the status of the cameras. So green means that the camera is offline. This is a real multi-product experience. So you can see as well that we have our sensor here, which allows us to give us an idea of like what is the humidity or temperature or noise level where this sensor has been deployed. Once I enter a camera, there's a few things that I can do. First, very interesting, is that I can actually do what is called a fast scrub. So let's say I'm trying to do a research and I know that around this time, something happened. I can fast grab the camera. You can see in green where we do object detection and a counter of how many people we're detecting in that particular frame. Most importantly, I can come here and I can say that I'm interested in knowing when moving, we'll see, for instance, at this bike. So maybe someone told me that a bike was stolen. And this pretty much will pull thumbnails of people, in this case, if I want to specify for people, that were seen moving around that area. And I have the ability to quickly pull that footage. I am currently pulling the footage straight from the camera. This is not something that I have stored on a server here next to me. Something else that I can do at that point is if I'm actually monitoring this camera and I notice something happening, I can quickly share a link. So here, for instance, I could send a link to myself. A link has now been sent to my phone. I can specify for how long I would like that link to be open. And then I receive an SMS on my phone. I can click. And this is going to open a stream of a Verkada mobile application, and I can start looking at the footage itself. So why this is very interesting, because you can imagine that maybe there's a police or a security guard that doesn't have access to the system, but you want them to quickly review what is going on. You can do it very easy with this share feature. We then have our people recognition system, our analytics system. This captures all the people that were seen by the camera. And we have a face page. So when we detect a face, we actually create a face page by itself. If there is something happening, or if, for instance, I'm interested in a particular date, I can filter from here. Or when I'm in people, I can, for instance, filter for people that are wearing an upper body in black, for instance. And this is now looking at all the footage and pulling up the film, pulling up the footage itself, which can now be played. Similar feature, we also have it for vehicles. Obviously, this camera is not going to look at vehicles, but we could do it from a different camera. And I have the ability to create archives. Archives are stored. We currently give unlimited archives to all of our customers. So all customers can create an archive, and we'll store for them as long as you have an active license with Verkada. And at the same time, we can help you understand the quality of the camera, meaning like how been doing, are they online on uptime, and their traffic. Some of new interesting features that we launched this quarter is the ability to create, for instance, alerts at a single person level. So I can come here, this is our alert management page, and I can say, for instance, that I want to be alerted every time that I see this bad guy. What is extremely interesting here is that I have the ability to say, I want to be alerted if that guy is actually seen only on this set of camera or this particular camera. I can set up who is supposed to receive the notification. So in this case, it's only me. But if I wanted, I can also set up groups. And I can have this notification for all the people in this group. I can select at what time, for instance, the notification should be sent and why, and I can go ahead and create this notification. Now, I'd rather not be spam because I know the person, I know he shows up at work every day, so I'm not going to create this person of interest notification. But you can imagine how that can become an extremely powerful analytics features. When we look at expanding our offering and our analytics offering, something that we do right on the edge that is very interesting is our occupancy trends. So what occupancy trends does, it gives the ability to customers to draw a digital line. You can see it here and specify an in and out direction. I can do as many lines as I want. And then this allows me to create a graph of how many people cross this line over time. I have the ability to change the granularity of this file, of this graph. I have the ability to export this file as a CSV. Most importantly, and this is a feature that we're very proud of, whenever there is these occupancy trends features or line crossing features, it is very interesting for people to know exactly why, for instance, this number says 39. I can click on it and I can see the 39 people that cross that line. And I can access the footage and I can look at the event of the people crossing the digital line. And we can see Emma coming in. Device management is extremely easy. We have all our devices from a single page. You can see here I have the ability to move a device on a page, change its name, force a reboot, or just manage it very seamlessly. I think one last thing that I'd like to show up is our LPR camera. You can see here, for instance, this is one of our LPR cameras in our garage. And you can see all the license plates that get picked up by this camera. I can look for them. So let's give, for instance, 811. You can see it pulls up all the cameras where it says 811. It does a fuzzy match. So for instance, here I said 811, and it picked up 8MHT161. I can then click on it, and I can actually review the footage of the car that was picked up as they enter the place. With this, this concludes my part of the demo. If you want to know more about Verkada or all our other suite of products, including access, environmental sensors, alarm, or gas, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or to the Verkada team. And with this, I think I'll pass it over.
All right. Thank you, Michele. We have reached the time in today's program for Q&A. Again, you can submit questions using the Ask a Question box on your presentation viewer window. We've already had quite a number of questions that have flowed in throughout the presentation. A couple of specific questions, Michael, relative to the Micron product. First question I'm going to pose to you in reference to the micro SD card is, what is the write rate of the device in bits or bytes per second?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, feeds and speeds, right? But yeah, so our latest offering, the i400 micro SD card family that I mentioned. So for reads, it's capable of up to 100 megabytes per second. And for writes, it's 35 megabytes per second. So speeds and feeds, again, in there, and translating that into application, as we showed on the one slide, it's able to, those speeds and feeds are able to achieve the 24/7 recording of, the 4K, all the way up to 4K resolution camera without any frame drops. So should be enough to do anything and everything that you needed to.
And as a quick follow-up to that, another one of the attendees wanted to know if something were to happen to the card inside the camera, would the camera itself report a problem with that card?
Yeah, so that's going to depend specifically on the specifics of the camera, as well as the software overlay service that's running it. But in either example, the answer is absolutely yes. That capability is there. So that can be managed through the third-party software, by the VSaaS provider or that the IT department is running. It can actually be accessed directly to the micro SD card. So through that network access, there's multiple options in terms of how that gets reported.
All right, thank you, Michael. Michele, I'm going to direct this question your way, and that is, what do you think are some of the most important technology and business operations drivers that are impacting the integration of VSaaS into enterprise and mid-sized organizations today?
Joe, that's a very good question. I think number one, there's a general trend towards a need for a single pane of glass. So customers are used to a more, let's call it like consumer experience of business products. And as a consequence, they want something that's easy, that is seamlessly integrate, and where they can look at their entire organization and all the devices from a single perspective. Number two, security cameras are now more and more managed by the IT teams. And IT teams do not want to start, managing an additional complex system. Number three, I would say, particularly for customers that have dispersed deployment, you can imagine we're having actually an hybrid cloud lean infrastructure makes it a lot easier for them. And then last but not least, there is a general trend towards a movement towards cloud for product offering. This does not only impact security cameras, but impacts any kind of products, including like emails or like the software that our customers like to use. Last but not least, people want to have new features all the time. I have I'm sure, Joel, every time that like either Google or Apple releases a new software, I'm not the only one that wants to know what is the new features I can use. And that's something that we enable as well in the security industry.
All right, thank you, Michele. Another question for you, Michael. Can you discuss, what are the benefits of using edge storage in a hybrid VSaaS solution?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, I'll start with the backdrop on what we're really transitioning to in many of these new deployments is, whereas historically this was more of a reactive, backward looking, hey, something happened last night or yesterday, let's go back at the footage. That was kind of yesterday's model, and that still happens. It's still an important function. But moving forward, what's really driving this industry is more of that real-time activity. So there's a person of interest who came into a certain area, Or I have a factory worker who's getting really close to this robotic arm that could be a safety issue. Or in retail environment, right, we have, there's spill or debris in a certain area of the store, or we're getting customer congestion, up by the checkout counter. So those are all things that are examples of real-time events. And that's, I think, much higher value for everyone involved in the value chain. As we think about that, because that's real-time, the potential delays in network traffic and getting all that information up to the cloud and then back out, it's just going to introduce delays. And in some cases, it'll be minimal delays, but in other cases, it can be longer delays, just depending on that space. So that's where having that local storage in the camera device itself to drive that activity can have the additional value for the end solution.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Michele, we had another question that came in for you. One of the attendees wanted to know, has Verkada ever been deployed in a stadium venue? And, can your applications be adapted to focus on specific security concerns?
It depends what you mean in a stadium. I'm sure we'll be in public spaces or schools. I'm not sure if we have like a large stadium customer, and I could look into it. I'm more curious. I would be curious from like the person asking the question, what are the particular security needs that they would need? And I'm sure I can help answer.
Thank you. Michael, I'm going to direct this question to you, and that is, can you provide an example of calculating costs for a traditional video monitoring system and how that kind of differs with the new approaches with VSaaS and edge storage?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. There's certainly a lot of different situations we can envision, but fundamentally, if we think about it, there's the installation and maintenance cost, and then there's a question of how much value, are we getting out of it, which is kind of the flip side of the cost is the value. So again, the installation costs and the maintenance costs to me is this question around the do-it-yourself model versus some of the subscription VSaaS offerings. I think are specifically addressing that slide. So essentially gives you the opportunity to amortize that cost and service over a significantly longer amount of time, and also have flexibility in terms of starting smaller and growing, additional coverage areas, or higher resolution, higher hardware capability over time. And then for folks, where this is being done by the IT department, again, we mentioned earlier that to some extent this is an opportunity cost where, okay, we can have those IT resources, deployed and managing this activity. Or we can utilize some of the expert services in the industry through VSaaS who are dedicated in this space, very innovative. Michele showed some of the examples on the software interface that's there. Right? I think there's an opportunity to utilize folks who are rapidly, innovating in that space and driving the ease of use versus doing it internally, and therefore using some of those resources internally to do other things.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Got time for one last question here before we wrap things up, and I'm going to direct this one to Michele, and that is, in your opinion, what are the biggest remaining hurdles to VSaaS adoption? Are they primarily technical, or is there still just general hesitancy when it comes to moving things off premise?
I think sometimes there's hesitancy on where the data is located, or like maybe a misunderstanding of where the data is located. That's the correct answer. The data is on the camera. And then, people are sometimes just used to use the product that they've always used, which I know is a long answer to say, if I grew up in a traditional infrastructure with an NVR, that's what I'm used to have. But and sometimes there's just resistance towards that. I would say we've experienced a lot of growth and a lot of traction. And as you said, we've seen a lot of growth in the market because the more people start using a hybrid cloud infrastructure, the more they understand the benefits of it.
All right, thank you. All right, and just to wrap up, I want to thank everyone who attended today's program, as well as our speakers for sharing their insights on the subject. Also want to thank our sponsors, Micron and Verkada, for bringing this program to you. Just a reminder, this webinar will be archived on our site for 6 months following today's presentation, and you'll receive an email notification once that has occurred. To access more of our webinars, visit securityinfowatch.com/webinars. Thanks again.